Hello and welcome to the first episode of the GM Next Door podcast, presented by Dungeon Master Daily. I am your host, Maximilian Hart. I've been playing in DMing Dungeons & Dragons for around 3 years or so, and as I've entered into this wonderful hobby and committed myself to being a better DM, I've realized that there's people who have been literally playing this game for longer than I've been alive. And I decided I wanted to sit down with some of those folks and others and learn from them, and thus we have this podcast. The GM Next Door is all about learning from each other and hearing from game and dungeon masters just like you and me, not necessarily professionals, but folks who have been in the trenches, who run games on a regular basis, and who have some insight and wisdom to share. In this, our first episode, we'll hear from a DM and a friend of mine, Charlie Burns. He's the DM of the campaign I'm actually currently playing in, and we're all having a blast. He's a bit younger than I am, but he's been playing for a lot longer. He's got a lot of good stuff to say, so I hope you enjoy. Okay.
Yeah. Do you have an introductory spiel?
Hello and welcome to Dungeon... Nope.
Hello and welcome to Dungeon Talk.
No. The GM Next Door.
The GM Next Door.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Hello and welcome to the GM Next Door. I'm Maximilian Hart. This is Charlie Burns. Do you have another name that you want to go by?
Yes, Chuck Alderman. No.
Okay. So to give a little bit of context and background, I've known you for, 2 years-ish? Something like that?
We might be pushing to.
Yeah.
Barely.
Purely through D&D.
Yeah.
And you're currently the DM of
Our
the
Wednesday
game.
night game.
Yep.
Well, we don't
Which
have
means
a
that you
set
can't, be completely free, because then you'll spoil things for me.
Yeah, but I can talk about other campaigns.
That works.
Yeah, I've run a lot.
That works.
I've played a lot.
How long have you been playing D&D, actually?
So it was sophomore year of high school that I joined the unofficial D&D club, which was just two teachers that shared a long classroom, and they both played D&D together.
Wow. And
they were like, "Oh yeah, you want to learn how to play D&D?" This was 4th edition was the only thing, but they played 3.5 because they were grognards, old. And so, I just showed up there at lunch every day for, the rest of sophomore year.
It was lunchtime?
Yeah.
Or was it,
No, it was lunch.
Actual class period?
No, it was lunch.
Okay, I thought there was two teachers that shared a class period that just did D&D during their class period.
No, I wish.
How did they have
But no, it was just during their lunch. It was just during lunch. We would just all show up. It was me and, 3 other people, and then I learned how to play 3.5, but we played a little bit, but it was, from there, it was mostly just me reading all of the books obsessively. Right. And then junior year, our classes all got put into portables. And then the one teacher was far away. And then the one, Mr. Fedor, he just hosted it during his class lunch period. And so I just started running D&D.
So you ended up taking over DMing instead of him?
Yeah. He never had time because he was teaching the IB program. It was the first year of IB, and he was the history teacher. So he was so busy. So I would just DM, and I would teach people how to play, and that was awful. But
so how did it end up being where you were the DM? What got you into DMing? Was it somebody...
Just because I was the only one who knew the rules.
Oh.
It was
That's
me.
Fair.
A couple of other people did, but I was the only one who had any interest in running. Nobody else wanted to put the effort in.
Okay, makes sense. So it wasn't people. So for me, people just were like, "Hey, I've always wanted to play D&D. Me too.
Yeah.
And then we were like, "Now we need a DM," and 5 people looked at me for some reason.
Well, yeah.
So I just sort of was just the DM, but you actually intentionally sort of went towards that.
I enjoyed it, and it was me teaching a bunch of underclass. I was a junior teaching a bunch of freshmen how to play.
That's fun.
And it was fun because we're all high schoolers, and I was still I was 16, and so everything we did was shitty. But it was
fun.
You
can just mess around with them.
Yeah, everything we did was terrible. There was an instance where I was running a desert campaign because I was kind of in love with Dark Sun for a little bit, but I didn't want to run Dark Sun, so I ran a desert thing. And again, it's one of those things when you're 16 and you're running for a bunch of freshmen. It was oh yeah, there's a sandstorm and you rolled badly, you lost your pants. That was that. Okay. Yeah, it was that kind of. Yeah, it was that kind of thing.
Right.
Because we could only play for 40 minutes because it was we had Roughly like 50 minutes of lunch, like a little bit less.
Right.
But it was like 10 minutes of everybody getting there.
So did you play every single day?
Almost. At lunch. We kind of had to.
I'm trying to picture how that would even work with planning. Did you just like leave off in the middle of something and pick right back up and just get used to...
Also, I got super used to bullshitting. Like 90% of everything I ran in high school was all bullshit.
Made up?
Yeah.
On the spot?
It was great.
Okay.
And with 3.5, it was kind of an ass because like there were so many more rules. And, like, bullshitting base attack, because there were so many more modifiers. It wasn't, like, proficiency bonus plus your attribute. Score, yeah. It was, like, you had a base attack bonus that worked a little bit like proficiency bonus, but it went up, like, almost every level. And then you had your attribute score. And then if you were dual wielding, you started with a base of, like, neg 3 with each weapon if they were light weapons. If you were dual wielding a normal weapon and a light weapon,
it's just a lot.
It was a lot of modifiers. If you read the grappling rules for 3.5, you understand why nobody grappled in 3.5.
I have not. And actually, that's the question. So it was 3.5. You played 3.5 during like 4th edition era.
When the heyday of it. I bought a 4th edition adventure, and it was like a adventure in the Shadowfell or something. It was set in a city in the Shadowfell. And this was before I actually had played a lot, so I'm like, I didn't know about the different editions, so I bought a 4th edition adventure, and everything was different. I'm like, what the hell is this? It was like talking about encounter powers and everything, right. And it's like...
So when did you, I guess, switch to 5th edition?
When it came out.
I
bought the Phandelver box, and I'm like, and then I read it through, and I'm like, this is really cool, I like these rules. It was way easier. And then senior year...
Especially wait, so did that happen between junior and senior year?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man. Okay.
I was running 3.5, and then, like, towards the end of that is when the Phandelver box came out, and I'm like, this is cool. And then the first player's handbook was released, and I bought that. And then senior year was way more lax, because I was taking 3 classes that were important, and I skipped the other 4. So, and those 3 important classes were, like, my 4th lunch, and then 5th and 7th period, or 6th and 7th period. It was weird. So
you would do class in the morning and D&D in the
No,
afternoon.
I wouldn't skip. No. I would skip like the first 3 periods of the morning. We would hang out in because the IB schedules got even weirder, and all my classes were on the IB schedule because they were the APs. Right. So the AP teachers were also the IB teachers.
Right.
So we had to conform to their weird schedule. So I hung out in the AP chem room for like 2.5 hours, and we just ran D&D all through that. And it was 5th ed, and it was rotating because senior year I actually got to play 5th edition, and that was fun because my good friend Mauricio was the one DMing it, and Mauricio was a fine DM. He just gave us everything we wanted. So like we were all 7th level, we were 7th level, and I was a bard with way too much magic shit.
So between 3rd edition or 3.5 and 5th edition, which do you prefer 5th edition?
I love 5th edition because it's easier to teach. It's easier. It's easier for people who don't play, or haven't ever played. I taught my girlfriend 5th edition. I taught Nikki 5th edition because it was easier. And if I was still in high school, I'd be running 5th edition because that's easier to teach people. 3.5, it was like, here's a character sheet, ignore some of this stuff, I wrote down the numbers, and it's like, pick the skills you want. Because like base attack, fiddling with base attack bonus and all that whole...
But what if you had experienced players?
I'd like to try 3.5 again, because there's a lot more flexibility. I've complained about this during our games, but like, 5th edition rogues feel very single use,
your sneak attack bonus.
Yeah, that's what the character's kind of built around. And in 3.5, they were skill monkeys, and your skills are what define the character. Because 3.5 also had, if you look at their player's handbook, they had a lot more weapons, which mechanically does nothing. But the fact that there were so many weapons, it added to the flavor of your character, and you can kind of flavor... You can flavor things now.
You can flavor a weapon.
Yeah, you can flavor weapons in 5th edition, but the fact that, like, you were a fighter or a barbarian with, like, an orcish double axe, and everybody at the table knew you were taking penalties to use that thing, but it was because it was cool for your character. Because double weapons work the same way as dual wielding, where you had a negative to hit with the second end, unless you took a feat. And feats were things that you got like almost every level.
Right.
And it was literally something as you just...
So there's a lot more character, like a lot more customization.
Yeah, because the sheer amount of mechanics and rules allowed you to do that. Because there were, there was 2 pages full of weapons, and there was like the skill page was like a page and a half of a character sheet.
But that's as a player, as a dungeon master. Which do you?
Oh, it's so much easier to run 5th edition. It's so much easier, especially with like there's so much more. Because 5th edition is the one that hit the mainstream.
Right.
There's so many more resources to steal.
That's true.
Like, there's, like, Colville is a gold mine, because I really enjoy how he runs combats, and he's a really good resource to look at for DMs, especially first-time DMs. Mm-hmm. His style of gameplay, it's predicated on him being, like, an old wargamer, and I get that. And it's a double-edged sword, because everybody looks at Critical Role. I love Critical Role, but...
Oh, for sure.
I'm not math. I'm not math person. And I've been at Serenity seeing like Adventurers League games trying to run like Critical Role, and I think that's a disconnect, because Adventurers League, I think, by virtue of what it is, can't be Critical Role.
It's a completely different purpose.
Yeah, so
I feel like Adventurers League by definition is competitive D&D.
Yeah, I think so.
To a sense, and
I think that informs how some people come into the game, because Adventurers League is more competitive, because like the party is kind of trying to beat the adventure.
Yeah,
it's the party very much trying to beat the adventure. Sure. And that
the thing, and actually that kind of leads into something else with planning. Mm-hmm. So kind of like shifting from generic, to
generic talk to how we plan.
Useful things. So if you're planning like a one shot.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if you're planning for an ongoing campaign.
Yeah.
Do you do the same thing? What changes?
It depends on the one-shot, because the one-shots that I'm more interested in running are me handing characters to the players. Like, I have an idea that I want to run like a Witcher-style one-shot where everybody's a blood hunter.
Okay.
And I hand out like 3rd level blood hunters to everybody, and the differences come in like the different blood hunter school or what kind of fighter or whatever. And my prep for that is just like it's much more different, because my campaign preps, because you guys are currently in a city, and I'm not doing the railroading you guys down to one thing. I just, in my book that I have for the Baldur's Gate campaign, I just have like random plot hooks and like notes on every like neighborhood that you guys pass through, and like what is here and who is here. Versus a one shot, I can railroad you, because that's what it's for. You guys are here to because there's plot point. It's like this is where we start. Somebody or something is going to start pushing you down this line of things. There are different things that can happen. Like, I'll give you the illusion of choice, but it's not going to be like my campaign where you guys could leave Baldur's Gate if you wanted to.
Right.
I'd need a minute, but you could leave.
I felt a little bad on Wednesday, being like, I'm going to join this mercenary group. And
no, that's like, fine. I want that, because
I don't know if this is something that he's ready for. So
no, that'll be fantastic.
Like, go for it.
No, go for it. That's what I want. That's what I want you guys to do, because I'm sure it's easy to tell with some things, but like a lot of the work I've done in our campaign has actually been bullshit. And I feel like I've covered some of it up.
You really have.
Yeah,
you really have.
I've gotten to the point where like I'm pretty good at bullshitting. I don't try to have possibilities planned out for everything. Okay. If it's a situation involving NPCs, I try to know the NPCs. Because knowing from where they're coming from and what they want is easier to react to random player bullshit than just having a spider web of possibility.
Do you try to like come up with stuff based on people's backstories and specific ways and stuff like that?
Because I love that. That's what I love as a player. That's something that never happened in the games I played. So that's why I want to make that happen for
if there's random chewing noises, that was the dog. If the microphone gets bumped, that's the dog.
They have
the camera gets bumped, that's the dog. I got an 80 pound goofball.
But
if the table gets bumped, the microphone gets bumped, it's probably us. I'm just going to blame it on the dog.
Yeah. But I try to plan for my players' backstories because there's no point in putting effort into your character's backstory unless it comes up. I don't try to force it. I try to pick appropriate times and for things to come up, and not so much as having it. I don't like the Critical Role thing where it becomes a story arc is cool, but I don't want to do it in such a way that we have to stop everything we're doing and now deal with this story arc because it came up, so we have to deal with it.
Right.
That's why with you, you found a sword that's from a former member of or the son of, or maybe a former member of your mercenary band. There's nothing to do with that, but it came up.
Right.
But
I feel like that is one of the main differences between something like Adventures League.
You can
something
do
like
that.
running like a published adventure.
Yeah.
Versus homebrew. Is that it's a lot easier to just fold stuff in.
Yeah, I mean, see, there's a difference where with a published adventure, you're making characters to fit into the world,
right? And
with a homebrew thing, you can kind of make the world fit your characters, your players' characters at least, because I can much more easily that I'm not directly running Descent into Avernus. I'm just using it as a springboard. I can Becca's backstory is. Right. She has family in Baldur's Gate that now I can make them as important or not important as I want, which is kind of the similar thing with the adventure Descent into Avernus, but there's everything in that is specifically written with specific NPCs in mind. So it would require you to carve out a chunk like this family to put Becca's in if you wanted them to have any purpose in the story.
Yeah. So do you prefer running published adventures or stealing from published adventures, or just making everything up?
I have up until this point I've only ever made things up. I've never ran a published adventure. And this is the first time I've bought one with the intent of actually using things from it, and it's just because they didn't release a Welcome to Baldur's Gate or a Glorious Guide to Baldur's Gate like they did for 3rd edition. Because 3rd edition had a disgusting amount of supplements and splat books, which is probably why that and the power creep is why they changed it. There was so much coming out for it. There were 3 players' handbooks, I think, at one point.
Oh, goodness.
And they had for Faerun, they had a glorious guide to X city, and it was just a splat book full of whatever city.
My goodness.
Yeah.
So, kind of a last thought on prep. Do you have a specific? Okay, it's time to plan.
I should be
here's
better.
What I do.
This. I should be
it's
better.
Just I should do this, and they need to be ready for that. It's just sort of things.
It's and I even as much. I'm trying to be better because I feel like the quality of the content that I run would be better if I planned more.
Okay, makes sense.
But it's really hard to. I find it really hard to prep. Yeah. I find it really hard to sit down and try and prep in advance. I'm so used to improving and bullshitting it that I have all of my creative ideas or the streak of creativity that I think of things for everybody happens when I am in no way I'm not in a position at all to write it down.
Or driving or something.
Yeah, I'm driving or I'm working. Yeah. Because I work outside, so I have nothing to do but think or listen to podcasts, so D&D takes up half of my thoughts. And I'll think of something really cool and I'll remember it. I won't write it down because I'll get home and I won't feel like it. And then I'll improv what I have thought, because it'll be fixed in my head for a while. And then when the time comes, I'll improv that. And I would think, this would have been way better if I had actually planned it out. But it defies just how I do it.
Do you actually plan combat encounters?
I plan the monsters. Because I have my favorite thing that I've stolen on recently is Colville's action-oriented monsters,
right?
Because I think it's really cool. I like how it makes combat feel a red cap that can, or boggles that have shoes like a red cap, and the red cap leading them can tell them to kick their shoes at the party. And because the action economy is kind of the force that drives 5th edition, so I think messing with it, or at the very least giving monsters more things to do and disrupting the your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn thing it makes combat more fun. Because
it makes sense.
If the party wins initiative, then monsters are probably going to die or be half dead, especially with our gunslinger.
True.
That's why that's why the hag encounter that you guys faced, where she spawned shadows, and if they were within melee, they imposed disadvantage. That I don't think he was even here for that, he was here for that. That's why that's part of the reason why I thought of that, was because it was thematic for the hag, but also it was targeting, because you guys all hit like trucks. Like, Ghost more so than anybody else, but even you with, the Paladin Booming Blade thing, you hit like a dump truck. So, I like to plan little things that target not my party's weaknesses, but their strengths. Because I like...
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, because disadvantage, you still have more than more than 50% chance of hitting anyway.
It just basically turns it into a straight die roll.
Yeah, and I think it's thematic. Like, you get why it happened.
Yeah, for sure.
I try to make... we've talked about other DMs and, like, how if you guys kill everything too fast, it's like, okay, well, screw you guys, here's another wave. That's stupid.
Right.
If you guys kill, like, the boss fight you just had, he didn't do anything. Yeah. But it worked. You guys all, like, were ready for it.
Yeah, so that's a kind of a question dealing with, like, players and in general. What is, like, your go-to thing if you realize, like, oh, this combat's going bad, either gonna end too quickly because the PCs will just wipe the floor, and it won't be a challenge that you're expecting it to be, or if I'm about to TPK them and I didn't expect that.
Well, when that happens, I'll get back to you. No, I've gotten a little bit more, because like I've thrown some pretty heavy things at you guys, but adjusting that stuff isn't as hard as it seems. It's just bumping down hit points and like taking a couple of notches off if it's to hit and lowering its DCs.
That's what you adjust. Yeah. Is like the stat block itself.
Yeah, I touch the stat block, but the abilities I don't. Like if there's something with it, I threw like a Bodak, like 2 Bodaks at like a 3rd level party, and Bodaks are like CR6, and they have a save or die. They have a save or die mechanic. I didn't touch the save or die mechanic. I just lowered the DC.
Okay.
It's because if you neuter a monster to the point where it doesn't feel like that monster anymore, there's no point in running it. If you run a Bodak, it has to do the thing the Bodak does. You might as well run like a White or some other undead that doesn't do cool stuff. Sense. The stat block is the easiest way to affect a monster's difficulty because, everything in D&D is just ruled by the dice rolls and the numbers. But the abilities are what make the monster feel like a monster.
Out of curiosity, have you ever kept a monster alive longer for cinematic
for you
purposes?
For you
just
guys?
In general.
Oh, for cinematic purposes, definitely. Because it's not... Just as I don't want my players to die ignominious deaths, I don't want my monsters to die ignominious deaths. I don't want the, clerics, I just healed, or I just moved over here to get away from this thing, but I feel like I waste my action if I don't use my cantrip, and I'm not going to let a cantrip kill my bad guy. Or if it's just this, string of bad luck where I can't roll above something, and then the players just... And the players just beat down my monster, and then I'm left with this thing that hasn't done any damage to my party. No. Even if it's something stupid, like when it dies, it does damage.
Right.
I don't know. Especially, I've gotten way better now, because I think all of my boss fights or mini boss fights have at least, even the bandits that you guys kind of made short work of. The first one got a really big sneak attack off on the bard. If somebody's bleeding, I feel like I've done my job.
Okay, makes sense. Now, I know you tried. You were like, I'm going to do XP.
Yeah, it's
for player advancement. Do you prefer milestone? Again, for that story reason thing?
If I was a better DM, I would do XP.
Why?
Because it lends itself to feeling like your character. Milestone to me just makes it feel like no time has passed, even if time has passed, because you're measuring. Okay. You're measuring everything by levels, not by how much time has passed. It's like if you guys had a downtime of like a week or 2 weeks or a month or 3 months, you'll come back. You'll leave that downtime at 5th level and come back from the downtime at 5th level, and it'll feel like nothing's happened. But XP, I can do side adventures. I can do like 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 adventures, and you guys can get more, and you would come back with higher XP than the rest of the party, or somebody would have. There would be a difference in number of experience points, and that would show in that, let's say, you had your, level 6 or 7 final boss fight, but somebody had done downtime, like a downtime adventure, and or everybody did, but they all got differing amounts of XP, and like 2 or 3 members of the party hit 8th level before like 1 or 2, and it's like, oh, it makes everybody feel like they've been doing different things, and they've come back slightly, different adventures. It makes it for me, it makes it feel like like more of an adventure. I don't know how to conflate that in any other better way.
No, like I get it. Do you feel like that'd be an issue of like people being like, oh, this person's higher level than me type of thing? Or
I think if it's a discrepancy of one, it depends on the people you're playing with. But I don't play with dickheads. So if if somebody's level 8 and you're level 7, it's just like you're 200 XP away from that. The next bandit encounter is going to push you over the line.
Right.
If I was a better DM, I'd probably do XP. I don't plan out XP. I don't crunch the numbers. Milestone works because it's easier, and after significant story beats, you can just bump everybody up a level.
Right.
At least in the ways that I've seen it, like in adventures, like in published adventures, it makes no damn sense. It's just like the party has arrived at Waterdeep, now they're 2nd level.
Actually, the adventure that I've seen at best does it is the Essentials kit.
Yeah.
It's basically an adventure
board.
As
you go on,
and if you do want to, there's like, here are 3 starting quests.
Yeah,
and if you do a starting quest, you gain a level.
That's cool.
And then you do another starting quest, you gain a level. And then the second tier of quests, you got to do 2 to gain a level. And it's straightforward, and it actually does make sense.
And it's no dissing on you, but Waterdeep just felt
Waterdeep was a piece of work.
It was just an ass, because it was like you were just like gritting your teeth, like, you guys, like, there's one thing you have to do to get like 4th level, and you're not doing it, and it's like, well, we don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Yeah, oh man.
And it was just like,
I learned that was a painful experience.
Yeah, because it's like
I think everybody except Alley Cat. Alley
Cat was having a great time.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, like I said, if Dualgal had better stats, I wouldn't have wanted.
That's the first time I ever killed a character.
Really?
Was your first character? Like, your first time with me?
The first interaction was your first
time?
I
didn't kill the character.
No. Mike did.
Yeah.
But I killed him.
Was it Mike or Nakia?
No, it was Mike.
That's right. You killed Nakia. Mike killed... Yeah.
Yeah. So I was the first person who killed a character at your table.
And Nakaya's character was the first death.
Yeah, but I killed him.
Yeah.
Waterdeep
was bloody in all the wrong ways.
Inter-party conflict is something great that we should touch
That's
on at one point.
For sure.
Because Waterdeep...
Actually, let's, in a minute.
Yeah.
Because while we're still on, like, player
advancement. Yeah, most definitely.
Do you, like... So there's XP. How do you plan out magic items? Do you, like... I know there's like I stopped. You're supposed to have a budget of magic items. You're supposed to have this many by this time and stuff like that.
Magic items are really cool, and there aren't enough cool magic items. Okay. In the DMG, I feel there's an insufficient amount of magic items. There should be more random, like, not mundane magic items like the Cape of Billowing, like they added in Xanathar's, but like stuff like the Portable Hole or the Immovable Rod or, the Bag of Holding is fucking awesome. Like, more of that stuff. That's why I love Eberron. Because all of that stuff is commonplace. It's like everybody and their fucking mother has a bag of holding. They use it as a grocery bag. That's why I love it.
Oh my goodness, it'd be so nice.
Yeah, right?
Could you imagine?
Yeah, it'd be great. But yeah, I think I stopped like holding like the faucet back on magic items. I try and like give appropriate cool magic items, and I don't really the same way with the monsters thing. I don't change the ability, I just change what it can affect. Like I gave the Codex thing that Mike has, his wizard, is something I ripped out of Strongholds and Followers. But the ones in Stronghold and Followers, they're absurdly powerful. They are like just treatises and books about how reality works. And the one that he has, the Nightmare one, is something I made up, but I thought it was cool. That's why a hag had it.
Right.
And appropriately scaled magic items are horseshit. Like a +1 weapon doesn't change the game that radically.
Right.
And so, like, with that, it's, why doesn't everybody have a +1 weapon? Because it's boring. And if everybody just has, a +1 magic sword, it's not special. That's why even, like, the whip that I gave Andy, it does a cool thing. It's a Bane whip. And that is cooler than a +1 weapon. Like, I was looking on D&D Beyond when I was making another one-shot, and I was trying to dole out magic items, and it's like, they don't have a variety of, like, magic weapons. Like, it's like a vicious weapon, a +1 to 3, and
like Flame Strike and a couple other things.
If you're lucky.
That's it.
And it's only, like, Flame Strike swords.
Yeah.
It's like, artifact weapons are interesting because a lot of artifact weapons have, like, negative effects or aren't wholly beneficial. Like, Black Razor is one of my favorites because if you don't kill something with it every 3 days, it makes you kill something.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's a magic sword that wants to eat souls. And if it doesn't eat souls, then it doesn't want you as its wielder. That's the Forgotten Realms novels are even better because in the Dritz books, Dritz runs into
so many cool magic items.
Yeah. And, like, they're all really evocative. Like, and he throws some away. Like, he gets a sentient sword called Cutter, or Kazadea, and it wants to be wielded by the best blades master in the world.
Okay.
And it thinks Dritz is that. But Dritz won't wield it because it's not a scimitar. And it can kind of change its handle, but it can't change the shape of its blade. And so it's like, well, if he won't wield me, I'm going to make sure that he can't wield anything. And it possesses one of his friends and tries to get them to kill him with it. And, like, that's cool because it's not just a +1 sword. I think it was like a sword of sharpness or something. So, like, stats wise, it was dumb. But that's why I love sentient magic items. Because they add flavor.
Do you spend more time coming up with just, like, daydreaming stuff? Like,
Yes.
Weapons or creatures or little spells and stuff like that?
I actually, of all the things, I deal with, like, spell monkeying the least. Because I like the spells that there are.
Right.
The only spells I have a problem with are 9th level, like 8th and 9th level spells. And that's just because 9th level spells are boring. And intentionally kind of fuck the player over for having them. Like, Wish is a monkey paw. Time Stop is lame if you read what it does. It's like a round or 2 rounds of you just getting to do whatever you want, but it specifically states you can't cast a spell, you can't use an item, you can't do X and Y and this. So it's basically a time stop. I'm going to run away for like 3 rounds, and then right before the end of it, I'm going to cast Teleport. Stupid.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so what kind of, like, do you do other stuff for your players? So, like, do you if a player has, like, an idea that's outside, like, the core basic stuff and wants to do, like, a subclass or an entirely new class or things like that, how do you approach that?
I've dealt with that before, and it's worked in some and not worked at all in others. I have a couple of books at home of, like, custom classes and subclasses that I tried writing. And, like, I was writing a gunslinger before Mercer published his, and it was, like, actually, yeah, it was junior year, like, because 2015 was when Crit Roll first started, and I didn't start watching it until, like, 2016, but, like, it came out kind of simultaneously with me playing, like, a little bit after I started playing D&D, but I had been reading, like, Pathfinder books, because that was 3.5.5.
Right.
And Pathfinder had a gunslinger, and that's what they were playing with, but I was trying to adapt the gunslinger to 5th edition before I even knew what Critical Role was, and I love custom subclasses. My problem is that if I would like to be a better designer so that I had a better handle on balancing them. Because I've ran games where somebody's like, oh yeah, I want to do this thing. And it's like, it's a fighter that has just 2 tower shields, and you hit people with the tower shields, and I'm like, that sounds fucking stupid. And not at all like I wanted in my game.
Right.
And
I'm laughing because at one point we played like a...
Well, like, if you can make it work.
Something, and I had 2 round shields.
Well, that's different, but like
Captain America style, and I threw them, and the DM was like, sure, and like, it was ridiculous.
That's fine.
Fun. Yeah.
That is perfectly fine. But my problem is like when even I can't see how that would work, or even I don't like if I don't agree with how that works. Like, he was playing a bugbear, and like I didn't like that anyway because my group was established, and then it was 2 friends I had that came onto it, or 2 friends of the people I was running for, and like one came in as a drow rogue assassin with like just lawful evil drow rogue assassin. I'm like, okay, maybe that could be interesting. And then the other one was a bugbear sorcerer, and I'm like, you're a fucking bugbear. Why? It's like, that's my problem. My biggest problem is with players who pick classes or races purely and mechanically. I hate that. I hate that so much. That's my least. That's the thing that turns me off as a DM.
Transition into like problem players will. When people say like a problem player, usually they just mean like somebody's being a jerk at the table.
Who's a dick, yeah.
And like, have you had that happen? How do you approach it? How do you deal with it? But then there's also like just players that aren't necessarily doing something wrong. It's just a different style of thing than you like.
So the people who are being dicks at the table, I haven't had that since high school because I've been much more selective about people who I play with. And I kind of got lucky because I was honestly super nervous about going into Serenity and sitting down at an Adventurers League table because I'm like, this is like a public forum D&D. I know the people who go to game stores, like I'm probably going to get like a table full of people that just I don't want to fucking deal with, and I'll only go for one night. But for like people who are being jerks, it's like talking to them is the best way, or if you really, really don't want to deal with them, just not playing at that table. Like, if you're the DM, you have a little bit more, a little bit more weight in the matter because
more there's responsibility in the matter.
There's no game unless I say there's a game.
Right.
So this needs to stop because, even if it's not something I find to be a problem, if somebody else finds it to be a problem, it's kind of
it's still a problem.
The way I see like DMing is, even though it's like an imaginary power that I have, it's still my responsibility to make sure that all of my players are having fun. And so if it's somebody who is acting in a way that is somebody else is complaining about, it's either you need to stop doing it or you need to get over it. Because I'm not going to be the kind of person that just because one person is a dick and somebody else is calling them a dick means that all the problem is on the person that is a dick,
Yeah.
Because I'm a good example. Like, I'm a horrible person. But the horrible things that I say aren't directed at anybody. I just, honestly, half the time I'm saying I'm going to get a reaction out of you guys. And I laugh at the reaction, and then I stop.
Right.
I don't know. But as for... What was the other thing? It was people in terms being of like dick, stuff, and then the difference in expectation is something I deal with a lot more.
Yeah. So what kind of, how do you, like, your philosophy of RPGs?
I try
D&D in particular.
Yeah.
In terms of, and I feel like in a way it kind of unfortunately boils down to like roleplay versus combat.
Yeah.
What do you spend time prepping more? What do
I prep so much more roleplay. Like, my combat is easier because I don't worry about, like, I prep the monsters and I give them their abilities. That's all I need to do. I don't have to worry, because I played a decent amount. I played a little bit of Warhammer. I've played a lot of strategy games, and like I know how combat works. And like, plus half our table aren't the tactical war game minded people anyway. I don't need to like.
So do you like adjust based on like who's sitting at your table for the things that you prepare?
Well, yeah, because if I really wanted to, like with the monsters, with the rules that I codify, and I would and if I started playing like this, I would have to codify all of my monsters.
Okay.
So that I could have, they do this, this, and this. This is why. And then yeah, I could totally kick the players' asses. All the odds are in my favor.
Right.
Especially with, like I said, I would have to codify, and the reason I'd have to codify my monsters is because I would have to be able to back up my bullshit. But with the table I have now, where it's like combat isn't what we're all here for, or at least it's not the focus of the game. I can be a little bit more chill. I don't have to, accurately track everything saving throws. I don't have to keep, all of my notes, because if not, somebody's going to be like, I shouldn't have died, or he shouldn't have been able to hit me. What's his to hit bonus?
Right.
Difference in expectations is I try and be upfront. Like, I ran Vampire the Masquerade for you guys.
Yeah.
And I came out and said, this is not a combat game.
Yeah.
We might go 2-3 weeks without touching dice. Sorry. And we tried it, and I enjoyed it.
It was fun.
I thought it was cool, but I could also tell, and I'm not digging against you, Andy, Chris, you guys want to roll dice. You guys want to fight.
Sure.
You guys want to fight shit. Vampire is not a game where you do that. Vampire is a game where, my experience with vampires, and kudos to Donnie, because as much shit as Nikaya and Mike give Donnie, Vampire is a game where I sat down at the table and there was a point where I felt legitimately physically sick with worry because I was going to do something terrible. I was basically taking... I was basically supposed to set up a human trafficking thing, and I was supposed to bring people in for it, and I had people in my car because my character was the super charming guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, this is really easy. I'm super taking advantage of all of these people. I don't feel good about this. And part of that was because I put so much of myself into that character, because I just amplified all the things I don't like about myself, and that was his character, Harrison. Yeah. That was Harrison. Harrison did that.
Yeah.
And I felt bad about that.
But I feel like that's what that system's supposed to do.
It is. It's supposed to. And it was even more so in the older editions. Now they kind of have they have the black card system, which is it's a trigger warning, which some people...
card.
Yeah, which is for some people there are things that you really don't want to deal with at a game table, but...
Yeah.
The table that we were playing at was 3 of us. It was myself, Nikaya, and another person, and Donnie was running it. So, we didn't have the same boundaries, so we were just, we're all going to feel like shit after playing this, but it was fun. It was so much fun. And it's such an improv-heavy game.
Do you... is D&D your favorite system, or is that,
I love D&D. I love D&D, but I think there are some things that it doesn't do well. I'm kind of a mind with... Colville has said that if you're playing D&D to not roll dice, you're kind of missing the point of D&D. There are other game systems that do improv and pure role-playing and non-combat way better. Call of Cthulhu being one, which I'm excited to run for you guys because I have some good ideas. Because Call of Cthulhu, if you get into a fight, you're probably going to die.
Right.
Or if it's a combat, it's not going to end well for the party, because... The things that you fight in Call of Cthulhu don't need to hit you, they just drive you insane.
You have to just look at you.
And you lose because you have died of insanity. Vampire is another thing where combat is very much more theater of the mind, and Vampire is more about the players making choices as their characters. D&D is my favorite because it's what I've always played, but I fall in and out of love with game systems just like I fall in and out of love with the games themselves. I loved that Vampire game, but other factors can affect, how psyched I am to run for it. Because, I want to run the game that people want to play.
Right.
And I don't want everybody to feel obligated because I'm doing it. So that's why I kind of just petered off of Vampire. We did, somebody else ran something, and then we're like, yeah, we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah. So you generally tend to lean more towards, role-play heavy.
I like role-playing. I love...
Do the cool thing rather than the best thing. Yeah. That style of stuff.
That's why I have...
And you do get frustrated when people are like, what's the best choice here? And spend 10 seconds
very frustrated.
Tactically analyzing a situation.
Well, that and also when
honest,
other people chime into it.
I'm guilty of both of those things.
Oh yeah, it's hard to do. It's hard to break away. So when I was in high school...
Yeah.
And everybody, when you're in high school and it's we're just here to kill shit and get money, it's a lot of fighting comes out of you didn't do the optimal thing or blah, 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 blah. And video games kind of lean you in, because if you don't do the optimal thing in games, you just lose.
Yeah.
And if you don't come from the background of like role-playing or pure tabletop RPGs, it's hard to break away from that mindset. But I find that it's so much more fun. Like, Dualgal was a blast to play. I hated playing him because he didn't fit in Waterdeep. Really because the two things to do in Waterdeep were interact with Waterdeep and fight the things that were in Waterdeep. And Dualgal was shitty at fighting, and he had no purpose to be in Waterdeep. If I had just changed it so that he was from Waterdeep or had a thing to do there or had a reason to interact with the city, and maybe bumped up, like if he didn't have like an 11 charisma...
I mean, to be fair, that I think is a failing of mine too. Because even I think in published adventures, you have to either incorporate your character's backstory into it and change the adventure, or you need to be very clear.
I think
during character creation.
I failed a little bit on it too, because I didn't realize how much you could do with that stupid fucking tavern. Because if I had realized, I would have just gone ham and turned that bitch into a bakery. I would have turned it into a full... I would have said, nope, fuck whatever the party wants. It's a bakery. That's how we're making money.
Nice.
And then
Dualgal would have had something to do.
Then I would have...
a reason to live.
Yeah. And then, I probably would have because Dualgal was an asshole and, like, super, like, relative, like, morally speaking, so, like, he probably would have become, like, the mob boss baker. Because I would have gone around, like, I would have gone back to that Puyet's Pastries thing, and I would have broken that motherfucker's legs.
So, in situations like that, as a DM, when you've got a character who's not necessarily going pure, as a player, I'm still in that phase of like, oh, there's a lot of cool things that I can do, and I want to try them out.
Yeah.
I think Kahir's probably my current character is my last one of that before I just go pure random and try something
because
totally off rails and fun.
Dualgal was just me random in everything.
Yeah. Now, when you do have a bunch of players that do go more towards do the cool thing, I feel like you end up with a lot more situations when players just go wildly off the rails of anything you possibly expected.
But that's what I live for.
That's what I run. Your favorite thing
that's
ever.
Why I run D&D. Because, like, killing the dragon by hitting it with the sword is cool, but killing the dragon by stuffing a bag of holding underneath it and ripping it a new asshole into the astral sea is even better.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
for some context. The final, like, fight or whatever of Waterdeep is this dragon.
Stupid black dragon.
I don't even remember what was he.
I think it was a black dragon.
It was a dragon.
I imagined it was a black dragon.
They the whole party went down there way too early.
Oh yeah.
And they were like, "All right, it's a dragon. We're gonna kill it." And I was like, "They're gonna all die."
Oh yeah.
And one breath weapon took like 2 people down, and so like bad. 1 person to 2 or 3 hit points. Person with 2 or 3 hit points.
I dropped the axe at that.
Two bags, like a bag of holding and another,
and the bag of sending or whatever.
Yeah. And just like ran up to the dragon and like used mage hand or something.
Used mage hand, dragged it over there, and then put one in the other.
And the dragon got sucked into the astral plane. The end.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was like, what?
That's awesome.
It was amazing.
It would have been really because like at that point I had dropped the facade of Husk being a Rakshasa, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna be the Rakshasa who's gonna die to this dragon, but I had much less invested in that because I was a Rakshasa. I'd just go back to the 9 Hells.
Problem solved.
Yeah, but I thought that would be cool.
Speaking of like improv and world building, do you have like names and places? Do you, when you come up with a new place and you're doing like that world building stuff?
Yeah. Which I also love doing.
Do you kind of have that ahead of time?
No.
Is it just like when somebody says, what's their name? Do you have like, I'm terrible with coming up with names on the spot. It's always like Bob.
I think I'm okay at it.
I literally have a note card just with names on it.
Would you believe?
And I'll like check off the first name on the list and like, okay, this person's this now.
Would you believe me if I told you I had one of those?
No, because you like never look at your screen.
Yeah. No, I think the names that I do come up with off the top of my head are plausible.
Yeah.
But no, I should, because I think that would make it would just, for me, I don't see, like, I feel like most of the sessions that I run, everybody has fun.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So for me, I pick at the things that I know I've done or my habits that I don't like, but I still do because I'm a terrible creature who's incapable of change. It'll take a beat for me to give you a name, or I'm trying to mix up because I do enjoy doing the voices, and I've been trying to mix up my cadence and manner of speaking and all of that. Those are the things I pick at myself for. So it does benefit to have a list of names and scratch them off. But I just, off the top of my head.
Right.
Most of the time. Unless I do some prep beforehand, I will do, like, important NPCs I will plan out before. Like, people who you are going to interact with a lot, or are going to be, like, a main point of drama or importance in my story, I will plan out. I don't plan out, like, all of their backstory. I basically name, like, who they are, how they talk, what they believe in, and what their goal is. Because those are my two...
So, say that again. Who they are, how they talk, what they believe in, what their goal is.
Yeah, like appearance,
okay.
How they speak, because that's important for me to play the character, especially because I ham it up. And the two most important things I find having for an NPC is what they want and what they believe in. Because those two things should define everything they do.
Okay.
Because if it's an enemy, like politician, what they want, gain more power or whatever, and what they believe in is that they are God. They are the greatest thing on this earth. That should inform how they speak to the players, how they treat everybody around them, and how they go about their goals.
It's weird that, like you say, like the two things that you need to roleplay for sure are the what they believe in, and what they want. The player's character sheet has the what they believe in, like their bond, but not the what they want.
Well, see, the bond, that I think is a shortcoming, actually a shortfall of 5th edition. The bond is, they include it in the character creation process, but there's no weight or context or anything to it. It's just something to pick off a chart, and most people just pick it off the chart. I think it's much better, because with Dual Gall, I rolled for everything, and that kind of informed, like, how he is. That informed how I interpreted him. Like, basically, like, oh, he was loyal to his shipmates, and since he wasn't on a ship, the party were his shipmates. And his bond was, like, to his family. And that, people stopped there. But the reason I kept going with Dual Gall, like, okay, so he's kind of like this, he's this asshole. He was an asshole. He was a moral relativist, honestly, is how I could deal with it, because and honestly, I've rewritten his backstory and how his family fits into Baldur's Gate for the campaign, because they're going to be there, because they have to be.
Oh, absolutely,
have to be. But as it was is, he believed in, it was honestly the idea of just being free, and because his formative years were either being super poor in Baldur's Gate or having the shit beaten out of him in a monastery by a bunch of assholes. So leaving all of that behind, it was like, I'm not going to deal with either of those things. So he was like kind of an ascetic monk, in that he wore just a wrapping of cloth, but also he didn't like people talking down to him because that's all he had gotten, and now he could punch things. So
basically, you're kind of
characters need to have more than the bond on their sheet. They need to know
for the bond.
They need to have their reasons. And as for what they want, like, I'm adventuring because I'm an adventurer, or I want even saying like I need cash is better than saying I'm doing it for the adventure, because we're all
that stuff that you like. I mean, I know some of us have like given that to you for our characters already.
Yeah.
Is that something that, like, when you come to a table, like, what do you require of your players in terms of information?
I ask my players to, if you have something important to them, or a reason why nothing is, because somebody wants to be a loner or an edgy character, and I say that disparagingly. We gave Jake so much shit for that, but like. I played characters like that when I was his age.
For sure.
Everybody did. Yeah. That's what's cool. When you're 15. But I ask my players to have something important to their character, because every lone wolf character, even if they don't care about anything, has a reason why they're like that.
Right.
Having a reason why your character acts the way that they are, or the way they do, is important, and why Kahir didn't stay a farmhand or a day laborer. Those are important, because otherwise there's no reason for your character to be here.
Do you vary the things that you prep based on the table? Like, do you, like, some tables you're like, oh, I know they're going to ask this person's name, and I know they're going to do this, and other characters, like, other tables, like, they're just going to murder them. I better drop a stat block. Do you vary the types of things that you prep based on table?
No. There have been times where I've had players who go to kill somebody that I didn't expect that they would want to fight at all. Mm-hmm. And for that, I have to, like, say, okay, and then I pull up the monster manual and I go for a stat block, and then I'll be like, yeah, this looks good. But as for, like, talking to somebody I didn't expect them to spend so much time with, that's what I also like. I like when they take an interest. That is what rewards me. Because, like, when you interacted with the Flaming Fist Guard who was being an asshole to the merchant, I put those things in front of everybody to see if they will interact with it. If you were a group of murder hobos, I wouldn't fucking bother. Right. Because nobody's going to interact with it or just be like, whatever. I put things in front of my players with the hopes that they will take a bite. If I was running for a group that didn't interact with anything, I wouldn't bother. And I probably would have more stat blocks. But I don't run for those people.
That's fair.
I don't run. Like, I think if I had played or had to run the Tomb of Annihilation, I would have such a bad time. I think
you would hate it.
I think playing it, I might have had a little more fun because, like, that's an excuse to make a 12th level, 13th level character that just has cool stuff and
I feel like with anything, it's a matter of the expectations set at the beginning.
Yeah, it's
what
like
type of campaign this is.
But like Dual Go had nothing to do, so all of my fun at that table was me interjecting Dual Gall because, like, he was bored, I was bored. Like,
so as the DM, what do you do if you realize or they tell you, like, a player of yours is that they're bored, that they're not enjoying the campaign as it's going?
Go out of my way to cajole, bother, or get that character to engage. Like, if it's somebody who's not enjoying, like, I fail on this because Nikki is my girlfriend is more of a little bit of a passive player, or our table is full of people who kind of know what they're doing, and Nikki hasn't played in a long. She's played, but not in a while, and she's not played with such a demanding group. Like, in that you guys all have things you're doing, and you're all like, I'm doing this, no, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, no, we're doing this, and somebody will take the reins, and Nikki is not the kind of person to interject.
Right.
Or, like, say, no, I want to do that.
Last Wednesday when she and Becca, like, took the reins and did something together.
I
was
that.
Like, yes.
And then
I was really hoping that I would not fail my role based on it.
And it was funny because, like, she was kind of like, she was getting upset because Kahir, and it's not you, well, you and Kahir, but Kahir takes the reins.
Yeah.
And
that's the character.
And she doesn't feel comfortable because she doesn't want to cause conflict.
Yeah.
She doesn't feel comfortable interjecting and be like, no, Tai Song's doing this. And I'm like, you have to do that. Maximilian isn't doing that because that's how he is.
Yeah.
He's doing it because that's how Kahir is. And if Tai Song wants it to stop, or if Tai Song wants to do anything, speak up. That's why you sit close to me. Because Kahir is going to do. And if you don't feel comfortable...
He is actually like a low intelligence character who doesn't exactly plan things out.
Yeah, and Nikki is just...
This is what we're doing.
Socially, it's the player rather than the character, but Nikki doesn't feel comfortable taking that control. So that's why I recommend, if it is a more timid player or somebody who's bored or not getting the chance to interact, that's not getting the chance. Sitting them closer to you helps. But if it's somebody who just doesn't feel like they have anything to do, I go out of my way. Like, I try to keep a running balance of how many times I've spoken directly to everybody. And I try, once I realize, like, I haven't heard from them enough, I'm going to find a reason to bring them out. Like, I still fail. Like,
right.
I still fail. Mike has actually improved so much.
Yeah.
Because Mike was quiet all the time. And now Mike, as Scrivener, I'm going to do my damnedest not to kill Scrivener because he has this cool thing and it's making him pursue shit.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for that. I need to do it. I need to do better with Becca, I feel. Because Becca is happy being the bubbly, like, unicorn warlock. But I think that character needs to deal with more of the world. Because Baldur's Gate is
not a bubbly place.
It's the antithesis of her character.
Right.
And I think it would be perfect for her to have to deal with more sad and gritty shit.
So when you have like things that you're like, oh, this character needs this to like have their story happen, this character needs this. Not to like, I don't want you to spoil stuff for me, but like, how do you go about trying to figure that out? Like what to do for a player character that you're like, there's an opportunity for story here, for character growth. Like, how do you even start that? I
ask for a background.
Mm-hmm.
Like why did your character leave? Blah, blah, blah. Like, Nikki for Tai Song has given me, they were raised in a monastery, and all of her siblings are tieflings. And I'm like, okay, her mother is a tiefling, but she doesn't know who her fathers are. And each sibling has a different father, except for she has a twin. They came from the same one. But all of her other siblings, all different fathers. They all look different, but they're same mother. And I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot of tieflings, like, in a monastery. Like, why? And then I'm like, well, there would have to be a group who didn't want you there. Like, because you're all demonesque. I'm like, is it a good... Because she stated it was a good god that the monastery was devoted to. And I'm like, okay, right. They really wouldn't... There would be some people in there who wouldn't be happy about a bunch of, like, little demon bloods running around.
Right.
And she's like, okay, run with that. And so all she gave me was, like, good god temple, bunch of siblings, all tieflings. I'm like, that. Then I take that and I try to extrapolate it in a way, like, what can create drama from your backstory and what can I bring back to make you unhappy or uncomfortable? It's like, you have brothers. Now I have something to dangle over your head.
Right.
Same thing with Nikai's character Ghost. He has I think a mother and I think a little sister, a little brother. And he screwed up a lot of stuff at his own town. And they still lived there and he left. That's something for me to dangle over his head. It's like, that's cheap, but, it works. Just because something is cliche doesn't mean that it doesn't work or it's not good.
Work for that player, that character.
Yeah. And so I try to logically take... I hope that the backgrounds are loose or vague enough that I can take them, or I honestly take the general idea and as I say, no, this isn't... Like, that's cool, you're from a mercenary band. You were going to this. Or no, you weren't really doing that. I try and work.
Try to leave, like, have your players leave enough, like,
that I can work
that
with
you
it.
Can be like,
because
I want to. This is what that is.
I want to surprise them. I don't want to just be like, here's this like encounter that you wrote for your own backstory.
Yeah,
that's lame. Yeah, it's lame, honestly, because I don't want. If somebody, I think I've had one or two players try to do that, and I've been like, yeah, this is cool. I'm going to throw half of this out, and I say that up front, and they're like, why? And I'm like, because you're not allowed to know all of this. And
makes sense.
Also, I think some of these ideas are dumb. The way I run D&D is very heavily predicated on what I think is cool.
Okay.
And what I find interesting and what I hope to make everybody agree with. I have cool things that seem really cool to me that are influenced by all the media and all of the books and shows and everything that I've seen that I think is badass and awesome. And I try and bring that about. I try to make it make sense for the character, but there are some, like, I have ideas for, like, I don't even know when they will come into play because there are some encounters with some people's backstories that only make sense for when you guys would be like 10th or 11th or 12th level.
So, in general, to kind of like start bringing things to a close.
Yeah, because it's 11.
Yep.
Doesn't feel like it's been that long.
I know. What is like your general like philosophy of DMing? Like what is the mark of a good DM?
I think,
or game master in general.
I'm going to give a cop-out answer because my way isn't the only way to do it. It's the way that comes that I like the most, that comes the most natural to me, and has been informed by my tradition of playing. The amount of it that I have, because it's been like 8 years. It's been 8 years that I've been playing this game, and the way I do it has been informed by that, but I've played radically different games with people who've only been playing a short time like you, and you're not, I wouldn't say by the book, but you're playing, I can see what has been influencing you because you've been playing a shorter time, and there's like a lot more for 5th edition that is like Critical Role, and like even the books, like there's a certain style to them, and then I think back to playing 3.5 with like this one teacher, and she ran D&D like an asshole because like that's what it was, is you were all dungeon crawlers, and it was kind of like the DM was kind of playing a joke on the party sometimes with like, this is a trap that's gonna fuck you up, and I designed it so that it would.
Nice.
But and a lot of the way that I run and the way I think about drama and characters and everything is because I didn't have friends growing up, and so all I did was read books and play single player games, and so like I don't think of RPGs in any sort of competitive context. So I think of the party as like a cohesive like storytelling medium, and I think the most important thing to be a good DM would be that you focus on what makes your players have fun, but not being a slave to your players is important. Okay. It's important that you also feel very strongly about the game that you're running, because if you don't think the things that you're putting into your own game are cool, you shouldn't be running it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Right. I'm very much a rule of cool and like creativity focused DM, because like a lot of the ideas that I have I don't think are going to work until they do or don't.
So as like I've been playing, I think maybe 3 years, something like that.
Yeah.
What would be like your advice to me, like, or to just in general a new DM, somebody either new to the game or new to DMing in general? Like, I want to be a good DM, like I want to be better at this. What should that person like focus on learning and trying to do and practicing when they run?
I think improv is the most important thing that you can learn, but and I only think that because it's very much like public speaking, where having everything written down word for word is only going to screw you up because you're gonna make mistakes. Right. That, like, if I ever have a session where I haven't fucked something up, I will tell you, and it's never gonna happen. And because if you have everything written down, and the D&D players by nature are capricious and chaotic, even if you're running for a chill group, they will do something you didn't plan for. And if you have everything written down that you only have like 1 or 2 things that they can do, you're going to freeze and you're going to fuck up. Improving is super important, and not being tied down to your expectations, because you could have a player who is kind of unintentionally min-maxed to hell, or intentionally min-maxed to hell, or built just in a way that for this one weird scenario, they one-hit KO your boss, and all of the drama just goes fit, and you're out of an encounter, and you don't know what to do. I think that is and not being afraid of having a bad session is also important, because everybody has a bad session. We had a really, really bad session when Knack ran that one Cygnus game.
That was a rough session.
That was rough. So everybody was upset.
Interparty, like the
inter-party
last thing,
conflict.
interparty conflict. How do you deal with that? What do you do?
There's a point where we all have to just say stop. Like, the Cygnus game was... We should have all stopped an hour before we actually did. Because it was just... Everybody
just, like, saw things out of character, detached.
Oh, most
like,
definitely.
Literally step away from the table.
Stepping away. Because the problems with that came from... Everybody was just overpowered to hell. And that also lends to my philosophy of when everybody's overpowered, game is not fun. I don't think I have yet to play a game where everybody is balls to the wall, like as strong as they can be, overpowered, and still had fun, because there's no challenge, there's no drama, there's nothing that makes the characters interesting stat-wise, because with D&D, you can say that you're a charisma 18 like fighter, but you're antisocial as hell, and then you still roll +8 on all of your persuasion checks.
Right.
Like, the role-playing is very much tied to the statistics of 5th edition. And it makes no sense to role-play a character not in line with the statistics.
So you think like part of inter-party conflict comes from like, being too powerful sometimes?
Can be too powerful. It can be from inter-party conflict. Can be like one character being like, I'm OP as fuck, and you all have to listen to me, or having. It's also very difficult to play a group of good characters with one evil member unless there is some idea that you're working together. And that the evil character isn't going to just be like, haha, now I'm backstabbing you because I wrote evil on my character sheet.
Right.
It's a delicate thing to deal with. We're all adults, and so we could just stop and be like, take a breath. We're like, we're not doing this again. Like, that's what informed the vampire session, because I'm like, hey guys, we're all best friends here.
Let's maybe not
have like,
yeah.
Inter-party conflict can come from like somebody being kind of power mad, or differing party like motivations, or even different player expectations. Because if you have a party full of murder hobos and there's one person who really wants to talk with like the reigning demon of the dungeon, and then the murder hobos, while you're giving the speech to like chill out and like talk with us, and then they just like, I throw my halberd at it or something like that. Don't know why I'm throwing a halberd, but that can also cause a lot of conflict. The best thing to do is, if you're adults, talk it out like adults, and if you're not adults, still talk it out like adults. Talking it out is generally, and a lot of people shy away from this. Shy away from direct confrontation, especially in the demographic that D&D kind of attracts, because a lot of us are introverts, or a lot of them are introverts, but sometimes you kind of, and I hate to be the guy saying suck it up, but sucking it up and confronting somebody directly is generally the best way to do it. It's why, like, Nakaya and Mike talk about Donnie and complain about him a lot, but I've also been there and had arguments for like 30 minutes with Donnie in the middle of Serenity, and we've argued and like about stupid role-playing stuff, and those fights that they have talked about, they have fought at the table and held up the game for like an hour, but they fought about it, and at the end there was a resolution.
Nice.
Like, even during the vampire game that Knack and I were playing, we had conflict with the third character because we made flawed, mechanically terrible character. Well, not mechanically terrible, but mechanically not optimized. I had like as mechanically high a stat in sculpting as you could have at the character level we were. And it's like, what am I going to do with that? No idea. And like, Donnie would call me on it because like I was an artist, Harrison was an artist, and then I'm like, I'm taking my 3-dot skill in Brawl. And he's like, why the fuck do you have that much in Brawl? And I'm like, because my dad made me take boxing lessons because he didn't want me to be an artist. And Donnie just looked at me, he's like, whatever. And then we had the opposing character who was like, I'm a hacker, but I've also got guns and like melee skills, and I'm a huge douchebag, and I have a sword cane. And I'm like, I hate you. It's like, and there was conflict that came out of that because me and Knack were just trying to roleplay, and we were in character.
Were just like BSing.
Yeah, we were in character because we were both a bunch of like, Harrison was like 25, Axel was like 19. We behaved like a 25 and a 19-year-old. The other player his character was like 24, but he behaved like he was a 60-year-old man because like we tried, Harrison like hooked up with a girl and then gave the girl the other character's phone number. And that was fucking hilarious and something you would totally do as a douchebag 20-something in that position. And rather than engage or roleplay, I'm just going to block her, burn my phone, and get a new phone number. And we just looked at him like, you're no fun. And and that became a point of contention where his character would just backbite or snipe or at certain points deliberately sabotage the things we were doing. And we got to the point where me and Knack were like pissed out of character.
And I'm sure like in his mind,
he was completely justified.
There are like these two just
douchebags,
assholes at his table, just like trying to screw up everything.
It's but we were playing our characters, and and he was very much a Munchkin player. In that, I'm familiar. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. There are some words that I use around some people. So he was very much a Munchkin player, in that he was super optimized in meta, and we were not at all meta, like at all. So
I feel like having like the inter-party conflict is really just getting people on the same page about expectations.
Yeah, or playing with people, or at the very least playing with people who understand the different players at the table. Like if you're playing with myself and Nakaya, know that be ready for
ridiculous shenanigans,
hijinks, or at the very least non-optimal play, because I knew out of character that Nakaya's first character only had 1 hit point. I still punched him in the dick. And even if I only did 1 point of damage, he still probably would have had to make that death save. But I did it, because that's what Dogal would have done. Same thing when I killed his pirate. Like, well, that was a little less, but...
That was something else.
That was half meta. That was half meta and half me also, like, trying... Because that... For context, I mistakenly believed that rather than taking a short rest, our party of 4 characters who had already been significantly damaged should press on in a dungeon, because I had the Druid of Spores ability up, and that lasted for 10 minutes. And I had like 20 some odd temp hit points, and I thought that would be enough. I thought whatever we were fighting, we could basically use the rest of our abilities on and kill it. So I let off my last 2 Thunder Waves, which unintentionally
hit down party members.
Which downed 2 party members and then contributed...
No, it hit downed party members.
It downed them, yeah.
No, they were already down.
It contributed to their last death save. I was number 2. I was number 1 and 2, basically, of their failures. And then they both failed their rolls. So it's really their fault. They should have just rolled the 20s.
And in retrospect, as a DM, too, like, well, it's always... I feel like things that happen are always, in a sense, partially the DM's fault. Like, I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
Like, if a kid's not learning something...
It's partially
always
your fault.
At least partially my fault. Sometimes the kid just doesn't want to do work.
I get it.
Like, well, how do you motivate this kid? But, like, as a DM, I kind of feel the same way in that it's always kind of partially my fault. Like, okay, maybe I should have, like, said, like, hey, you guys are, like, half health after kind of, like, just a couple things, and you're going to go fight the big baddie. Are you sure you want to do that? Like, just letting out some strong signals in a case like that.
I get it. In my experience, players are always going to do the least up. Not always, but they will often do stupid things. The way that I personally would have handled that without my idiocy is, because the problem is that it was a failed death save and not like an enemy killing them. You wouldn't have had an idiot spamming Thunder Wave, killing a party further, but I think having, like, without doing dredge, I don't know if you were planning on having the spiders execute them while they were down or what. I would have had them drag them off and start cocooning them.
Yeah.
And depending on how, like, sentient that pirate orc was, is maybe if he was alive enough to take captives.
Oh, he was stunned the whole fight.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like I said, without dredge being dredge.
There was just all sorts of weird stuff.
Yeah, it was a really bad happenstance. Where are you posting this, by the way?
This podcast. Yeah. This podcast can be found on possibly YouTube in the future.
Cool.
Anchor, and then distributed via all the podcast platforms.
Neat.
Yeah.
Awesome. I hope that... I know that this is just like an interview, DM at a one-time thing, but I hope I can come back for something else in the future. Because I enjoy talking to you.
3 final questions.
Three final questions.
The first. The favorite story of something that's happened at your table with you as a DM.
How is that a short question?
Just like a summary.
You're putting me on the spot, you bastard. Next time, send these ahead next time.
We'll put that question on the table and ask you two actually quick questions.
Yeah.
What's your favorite method of rolling stats for characters?
3d6 or 4d6. Drop the lowest, reroll ones. But that's ones. Yeah, because I find on average the more dice you roll, the more statistically likely you are to hit the average. But re-rolling ones at least lets you feel like you don't get fucked over.
Okay. But, do you fudge dice rolls?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. It's important to fudge dice rolls because again, you don't want the players or your boss monsters dying ignominious deaths without doing anything cool. And fudging a dice roll is very important for that. Or fudging hit points.
Which do you lean towards? Fudging dice rolls or hit points?
Both. No, I'm serious. I will lay bare. I don't do it all the time, but if it is contingent that my boss, for me to set up a cool moment or for me to just not have my boss die with a gasp, I will lie.
Okay.
And it's not a bad thing to do.
And now that you've had approximately 5 seconds to think about it,
yeah, one of the favorite things.
One of the crazy, what's one of the
with me as the DM?
With you as a DM, what's one of the craziest, most favorite things? One of your fondest memories as a DM of something that's happened at your table?
I have so many good player stories. With me as a player, it's so hard. With me as a DM, I focus less on those because but I would have to say, it's probably actually the game we were running. I think not craziest, but fondest was when we played with Father Lopez, because I really enjoy taking somebody who's never had any experience with the game, never been exposed to it, and running them through something, even if it was as simple as what he got to do was. I really enjoy that. It's really one of my favorite things is introducing people who have never played to the game.
For sure,
it's so much fun because the I can do that, or what can I do, and I get to say everything. It's even stuff that you think is stupid, if you tell me and I think it's cool, we'll do it.
Sounds good. So any last words of wisdom, advice?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just play the game. Play every game. Books are expensive. Get PDFs. Don't steal PDFs, but get PDFs. Read the rule. Know exactly. Don't know all the rules because nobody ever will. But be able to come up with something that sounds good for everybody and play every single game that you can, because there's cool things in every game system, even the weird ones. Steal stuff from Shadowrun and put it into 5th Ed D&D. Put stuff from sci-fi into high fantasy and let it be a mystery. Taking things from everything you like and put it in your game. And if your players know what you're stealing from, they'll be hey, that's a cool nod, or I know this, but then change it. And if they don't know what you're stealing from, then you seem like a creative genius.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for joining. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Folks, this has been the GM Next Door podcast. If you have questions that you'd like me to ask whoever it is comes on next, send them to me.
Bro, can I plug my Instagram?
Sure.
I'm on Instagram at HP Loves Crab.
Say again?
HP Loves Crab.
HP Loves Crab.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the joke. It's
at HP Loves Crab.
Yes, you can DM
Charlie Burns.
You can totally DM me for stuff. Which
if you have questions to ask Charlie, do that.
I know you're thrown with the.
And that's a wrap for the first episode of the GM Next Door. If you have comments, questions for my next guest, or some feedback, hit me up. You can find me at dungeonmasterdaily.com and on Instagram at dungeonmasterdaily. You can also call in with your own questions at anchor.fm/GM Next Door. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Now get out there and tell a story.